somebody else.
Good to go.
Millbrook?
Good afternoon, everybody. This is the December 13th, 2018 Board of Health meeting. Quorum is present. I'd like to remind everybody that this meeting is being recorded by audio and video. Before we get started, public comment, is there anything on the agenda that anybody would like to talk about before we get started? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Review of the minutes. Does anybody have any comments, additions, corrections?
Make a motion, they're approved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I wasn't here.
Minutes are approved. And we'll go right to, because I know you're pressed for some time, we'll go to the director's report.
Yeah, it was for the director's report, it was pretty quick. We're gonna try to do it pretty quick. Kathy and I attended a conference at the Massachusetts Health Officers Association. I did a presentation on the health equity on the island. It was very well received, and the state DPH is actually gonna start setting up a health equity training program that they're hoping that I'll be able to teach. So we're putting Nantucket on the map as more than just what was the reputation we have out there of the playground for the rich, where we're actually starting to get information out there on how we're actually doing good progress on the health disparities. We're going to be used as a model. So more info on that coming forward. The venison donation program was up and running. It was going well. There were, as of last week, there were 7 deer. I haven't connected with Dylan to see if there were any last minute donations. There are 8 now. Okay, so we have 8 now. So it's on par with this as with last year. It didn't expand as much as we're hoping, but it is still going. I think it still has some traction. And then we're chasing down the last few people for permit renewals. It's permit renewal season. All permits expire on December 31st. We're down to less than 20 food establishments that need to get renewed right now. So we're in pretty good shape. It's always those few stragglers at the end that we have to chase down. It's less than 10%. And then it's just been really busy with a lot of the plan reviews. Kathy, how many mobile food units have we received, and how many?
Well, we've probably received about 10 requests for information, and I probably have 3 in hand right now that I'm working on, and probably 2 food facilities that I'm working on.
Yeah.
But a lot of inquiries, everyone wants to be mobile. And
So what would be the total food trucks if they all get approved?
if they all got approved, if they could all get approved, we could be up to 20, but most of them, once they see the requirements they have to fulfill, I don't hear from them again, because it's very
Okay.
difficult on our end and on the town side, because a lot of these people are coming from California or the South, and they think they can put a mobile food unit anywhere, and when they find they can't,
Right.
or they have to comply with mass regs, they usually don't come back again. So, we'll probably be dealing with 6 to 10 maybe. And most of those will be renewals linked to restaurants. That's usually what works.
Right.
They come in front of us anyways, right, for final approval, right?
Yeah, we do the final approvals.
Yeah.
So we're the last inspection they get before they open. So if they don't pass us, they don't open. So it's been surprisingly busy this past fall. We're moving forward. The budget recommendations were made. It looks like we're slated to get another inspector. So that's going to town meeting. Fingers crossed.
If we get one, does this new person have a place to live?
Yes. It will be behind our tell. We'll be getting another desk and putting them there. If the
Talking about living like a bed.
I actually have
Oh, you mean a house?
housing issues on Nantucket.
This person's going to sleep with our towels?
Yeah. No, okay. I actually have had interest expressed even before we've been approved for anything, from people who already have houses on island, people who already have, one of them has a master's in public health already, from
Okay.
Northeastern, and, she has a house on island already. She's living here. So if things go well, hopefully they will apply. Housing is a real thing we have to pay attention to, so.
Because I heard the town had hired a new, someone for shellfish, and they don't have a place to live.
We offered Natural Resources has offered a job to a new water quality
Yeah.
specialist who would be replacing Caitlin,
Right.
but she's desperately looking for housing
Housing.
right now. She needs to find something for her and her partner.
I mean, that should be a good example of our problem. Here we have somebody that's gonna help us take care of the water, but we can't have a place for them to stay.
And we recruited her straight out of the EPA, so it's a highly
Qualified
qualified person.
Mm.
Like, this is her research specialty, and we're having trouble finding housing for her.
And the Board of Selectmen ought to take note of that, like they don't know there's a problem.
So we spend, as you know, it's one of our 3 top priorities, housing. Every week we have long conversations about affordable housing. Last night we spent a lot of time drafting a letter responding to Surfside Crossing. We're in the final stages of negotiating the taking and disposition of the roads that will permit Richmond to seek their first building permit for a 98 unit, two totally 98 unit apartment buildings. And we are in our own 6 fairgrounds project still is tied up in court because of a couple of neighbors who have sued the town.
Trying to move forward as quickly as we can, it's difficult.
Right.
And that'll be it right now.
Anything else? If not, we'll go to this, there's a couple of these on here. The first loan, which is for Zeeves on 51 Millbrook,
Yeah, this is same, straightforward, no objections.
repair of the septic.
Yes.
Can I get a motion for approval?
I motion that we approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. 19 Wall Whitney Lane, Madden Road.
I'm gonna recuse myself on this one.
Oh, yep. It's the loan for Tim Madden and Diane Pearl. They're upgrading to an IA.
Aye, okay.
And are we in the, second tranche? Are we still paying off the?
This is almost the last of it. We have about enough money for one more loan, maybe next month is really what it is. Then we'll hit the second $2 million.
I noticed in their application, you asked them what their income level is.
Yes.
They didn't complete that, so.
Yeah, they're not required to complete that yet, so.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Need a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next, my comment, land bank, which I'm involved in this one too, so I'm gonna recuse myself and just turn this over to Malcolm.
Okay, just summarize it for us, please.
It's Maya Comet Golf is looking to do some of their work on their clubhouse. They have approximately 28,000 gallons worth of capacity, something like that. 23,000 gallons worth of capacity. They're requesting to disconnect the leach facility for the time being of their construction and use it as a tight tank. It seems straightforward because it's not permanent. We have discussed this internally, and it doesn't seem like a bad option.
What's the
Are you
time frame?
representing that?
So I don't know.
I am,
It's just-
Arthur Gasparo, Nantucket Engineering. I made the request on behalf of the land bank, and I'd be happy to try to address any questions or concerns. I mean, I don't think that this is gonna get pumped more than 2 or 3 times total over the period. It's 23,000 gallons is quite a lot. So if they even pumped it down right now before, during the winter flows, you know, it's, I think, just being exceptionally, you know, cautious to come to you right now and to say that the hydraulic unit that currently serves, the current system right now, which I designed about 10 years ago, 8 years ago, is a Perk-Right pressure system, so it has a hydraulic unit. It's not just a conventional system. So it's a, you know, and especially at the flows for this size of a facility, it's somewhat involved. So, you know, the other alternative, just in discussion, so that, you know, for you, would be essentially to move and, you know, set up a temporary whole hydraulic unit, repipe everything, to have that work for, you know, less than the 6 months, which would be, I think, you know, quite burdensome, expensive, and time consuming.
And was that the time frame, 6 months?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought this was
I have some
Blackwell's.
questions. What will the operating hours be for the club?
You know, I really can't speak to the operation of the club itself. You know, I'm here on behalf of the, related to the septic capacity. I'm not a member of I don't know what exactly, whatever they currently operate. In other words, I don't believe that this is tied in any way to hours of operation, you know, other than the standard licensure, I suppose, they have from the selectmen.
Yeah, they would come before the board and get their annual license for.
So whatever those
food-
hours are,
food and
I'm
for,
not, there's no
entertainment.
changes proposed from whether it was septic or tight tank.
Well, the other question I have is, I mean, you don't have this is an open-end thing, right?
No, I
We need-
included in my letter that it would end on May 31st.
Do you actually need that much time?
Oh,
This is not the first thing you're gonna do.
Yeah, yeah, you know, I think that 6 months, you know, for construction scheduling, the last thing they would wanna do is to have to come back to you. So I wouldn't wanna say, oh, they can do it in 4.5 months and cut it short. Certainly May 31st is, you know, about when the season sort of starts to change.
But my question is, though, you won't wait till the last minute to get this thing back in operation?
Oh, no, I don't, I wouldn't think so at all.
So
I think,
in
it
your
could be
estimation,
less.
it might be done way before the 1st of June.
yeah, I really don't know what their overall, how they're phasing. I'm not that involved with the project in terms of, you know, the construction of the clubhouse. My involvement is really related to the septic.
Any other questions?
Make a motion that we approve the temporary variance to use a tight tank while the clubhouse is under construction.
Can we add to that it must be completed by May 1st?
31st.
He said
May
May
31st.
31st.
You know, under the terms as
Under the
outlined.
terms as
As outlined in the
requested,
letter of.
as requested.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
It's
Yeah,
car-
sorry,
that
I
is
thought this
carried.
was Jeff's. I would have asked to do it.
Before we would not voted.
Okay. Another variance, local reg 52 for a 100-foot buffer, equipment. No
Would you
proof.
mind taking this one?
He's on three.
Oh, you're all
Sure,
three.
if you would like, Mr. Chairman, for the applicant again, Arthur Gasparo, this is a maximum feasible compliance upgrade. There's essentially very limited area on the property due to wetlands and wells and structures and property lines. So there's no expansion, it's a repair. It's, you know, we're adding IA technology, we're moving the septic as far away as we can go from the wells and the wetlands. And I also have an application pending before the Conservation Commission.
Right, my only question is, the Conservation Commission's not even gonna speak of this until the 19th, next month. So, if we do approve this, I would do on condition of the approval from the Conservation.
That would be agreeable.
That won't
Yeah.
affect.
No, I need all permits,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
I
okay,
appreciate
Yeah,
it.
if
all
it-
right, just so.
If
yeah,
Concom
no,
says no,
that's
it doesn't
fine,
go
just
forward
so-
anyway.
Yep, I understand.
That's pretty straightforward, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I make a motion that we approve the variance request for 8 Old Quidnet Oak Road.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
5, Chase Links, no tight tank request.
Once again, Arthur Gasparo. This is for an old small structure out north of the Reed Pond, which needs to be relocated due to erosion. It's in close proximity to the top of the coastal bank, which lost quite a bit last winter, 6-8 feet. And the structure, the deck is, about that same distance away. So we've received permission from the Conservation Commission to relocate that structure landward about 50 feet or so. And what we're asking for is permission under the section of Title V that allows the use of a tight tank, subject to your approval, on a seasonal basis. And there would have to be a deed restriction that would be imposed on the property, that the property use is limited to 6 months. I did realize that I probably could have provided you a little bit more information about that, so I did bring a couple of things for you, which might just help you visualize and what we're dealing with out there. And I'm told that this structure was related to the Tuppence Links Golf Course back in the, I assume, late 1800s. I've been in it. Doesn't look like it's changed all that much. And so there's some photos that show the structure's proximity to the coastal bank, as well as the condition of the structure and an aerial. The structure would be picked up and moved straight back there. These owners only use it in the summertime, their family and family members, and have generationally. They are not proposing any improvements or changes. They want to do as little as they have to, just to have it not fall in the ocean. And so we feel that we don't fall into the criteria of new construction because there is no new enclosed space. With respect to the existing septic system, the records are a bit murky on that. I'm not even sure. I suspect it may be a cesspool that goes to an old leach pit.
I think it's a metal tank.
Yeah, it might be metal, and I was told it was a rock type of a tank. I was told that, it's not likely to pass any standards, so don't spend too much time on it, essentially. And so the proposal would be to install a 2,000 gallon tight tank and put the deed restriction on the property. In terms of alternatives, just for your consideration as well, this is a large property. There is an area that they could put a septic system in and pump, down through the driveway, back a couple hundred feet, explore, where you could put a septic system. I did bring another plan because I did realize I only showed you sort of a part of the lot, so I think it is important for the board to have all the information. Of course, this stays with you, public record, and so whether that could be outside of a 100-foot buffer zone or not to the wetland, it would probably be close. There is some area, so they might be able to come up with something else. I think that the standard of Title V, when we're looking at this one section where you're imposing a deed restriction, is that this board or the approving authority may allow the use of a tight tank. And I think the level or the standard for evaluation should be both environmental protection as well as a reasonable alternative. In other words, the installation of a septic system that has pumps and is very involved and comes back hundreds of feet, and a whole new leach system for a seasonal use house in this condition, we believe would be overly burdensome, and that's why they feel, and then in terms of environmental protection, the removal of all of the waste from a tight tank, there essentially is no greater level of locally environmental protection compared to an on-site system. So the owners are hoping that you would agree to allow this. They'll restrict the property to the seasonal use and not have to go through the great expense of putting in an entire on-site system.
How do we assure that it will only be seasonal use?
Well, you couldn't heat this place if you wanted to. So in terms of the structure that's there, and I've seen this, I've worked for this family for quite a while, and they put all their stuff in the house over the winter, and it's, I don't see this structure as is being used any differently seasonally. Now, in terms of, conditions from the board or the deed restriction and enforceability, my thinking would be that obviously to make it so that you could use it more, they'd have to get building permits, and most likely you're gonna fall then into a category of new construction, which wouldn't be allowed on a tight tank, similar to unless without coming to the board, similar to the Wawinit situation last year. So I think there's a level of protection for the board. This is also an eroding bank. The time is somewhat limited up there for this portion of the property in the future. I think if somebody's going to, come and develop or work on this property, new stuff, it's gonna be, down to the south, and they'll have to do a septic system at this time.
Well, I have a couple of questions. Tight tank is the last thing you wanna do if you can do a system. And you just said you could create a Title V system. You have the room.
Mm-hmm.
So my thinking is if you have the room and you can put in a Title V system, I think you should put a Title V system in.
If I may respond, Mr. Chairman, I think that that was always the standard prior to the last change in Title V, where they added the option. Up until the last change in 2012 or 14, it was only under a last resort. But they added the clause for giving the local approving authority a case-by-case discretion subject to a deed restriction. It doesn't say in the regulation that there has to be no other alternative. If they were in a no other alternative situation, then they would ask for a tight tank without a deed restriction. So it seems to me that this is here for certain situations so that you can reasonably weigh and look at, in a particular situation, if someone's willing to, encumber their property with a deed restriction, which most of the folks that I've dealt with over the years, when I say there's this option, will do almost anything else but to put, an encumbering 6-month restriction use on the property. So I think in this case, it meets the standards in terms of, environmental protection, and Surfside can handle it. They'll have to pay. I guess I'm not sure why the standard has to be absolutely no alternative.
Roberta, what's our past practice in this kind of a tight tank use with deed restriction?
The past practice has been as a last resort.
So we've not done one of these deed restrictions?
Not that I know of, unless we did one before I started.
Well, we may have done deed restrictions, but my recollection is that it was as a last resort. I had a conversation with DEP regarding this situation and that clause in Title V. And their feeling was that if you can put a compliant system on the property, you need to put a compliant
It's
system
sort
on
of
the
been our
property.
standard for the last couple of years.
It's been our standard.
It's been the standard of this board.
But I don't know
If there's
that,
only when there's no alternative.
yeah.
Is the phrase we've been using.
It's definitely been the standard since I've started, for sure.
Yeah.
And, homes can, they can winterize that home. We wouldn't, be able to prevent them from doing that.
And then the burden of inspection comes back to the town or to you folks, and that's a heavy burden, because we don't want to be in the business of going out and checking on somebody's house to make sure they're not living there in January.
Right. Right.
So it's a great point. Deed enforcement is very difficult.
I mean, if we have plenty of systems that pump, you see all kinds of loans and what these cost and how expensive they are. This is an 18-acre piece of property, and it does look like, we don't have all the information, like Art said, but it does look like you
There's-
could get something in there. And, you know, if you can, you know, I think we should.
I'd certainly lean in that direction.
Yeah, I just, think it's going down a slippery slope.
Well, how many houses out here are unoccupied for 9 or 10 or 11 months of the year? I mean, a lot. So that doesn't really,
85%.
you know, is not a compelling reason to not, and I understand the shape of the house, but it doesn't mean they can't go and insulate it, can't, you know, do sheet rock it, improve it. We can't really prevent that. You know, additions to and whatnot would be, you know, certainly would be a trigger. But I just don't think it's good practice and consistent with the decisions that we've made. And anyway,
The only difference is that in this case, it's literally going down a slippery slope
Yeah.
as the bluff collapses.
I don't need to add to anything that these guys have already said. I'm just gonna reiterate what Malcolm,
I'm hearing you.
yeah, so.
So I'll make a motion, we do not approve this variance.
I second that.
Could I just add that based on the, I guess, testimony from the applicant, that it's possible to install a conventional system to that motion?
Okay. All in favor?
Maybe.
We need somebody seconds.
yeah, we don't have that.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Yep.
This is for you, I'm sure you want to keep
Yeah,
this,
I'll
keep this stuff for your file. This is the same one.
I had that.
And for this, we're gonna need a motion to open the public hearing.
I move we open the public hearing on changes in local regulations 72 and 77, which refers to tobacco control.
Okay, a second. All in favor?
No, it's got a question. Is there any chance you could put in a military exemption
To this?
to you're on the smoking thing?
Well, we'd have to discuss that.
We're just opening the public.
We're opening the
hearing.
hearing.
Huh?
We're just opening the public hearing.
Oh, okay, fine.
We haven't had any.
Okay.
So all in favor to open the public hearing?
Yep.
Aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is now open.
Okay, so we have Bob Collette here from Barnstable County, who is our tobacco enforcement and tobacco control officer. He's been very helpful with all of our tobacco enforcement here. He keeps a lot of the pressure off our plate, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
And then I'll actually just, if you can provide a background on the state regulation and why.
Right, so in July, as you're well aware, the state passed a regulation, well, amended the current state law in several areas, but most importantly, will increase the legal age to purchase tobacco products and all nicotine delivery products to age 21. However, they did that in a sort of it's a sort of a difficult process whereby it's a stepped or graduated process where the age will increase to 19 on December 31st, and 20 next December 31st, and 21 the following December 31st, only in communities that have not, previous to December 31st, increase the age on the local level to age 21. This presents a lot of difficulty, of course, for the local retailers who have to kind of keep track of this and potentially could argue that they weren't aware of the annual increases as they occur, or they forgot about them. And it's not gonna be as clean as just kind of going across the board with it, such as the case with alcohol and now marijuana. And I know a gentleman brought up the point about the military, and that's a tough one to counter. But I will say that a couple of points to that to counter that is when the state of Hawaii went to age 21 a few years back, the top commander in every branch of the military came out and publicly supported that the state do that. They want their military to be the healthiest people that they could possibly have. They know that they were taken advantage of fully by the tobacco industry back, starting in World War I, when the mass manufacture of tobacco and cigarettes began. And the tobacco industry, trying to play, pretending to be a good guy, would give the soldiers free cigarettes for their rations when, so when they had their downtime. They knew they were creating a whole generation of smokers, and which effectively kills 2/3 of them prematurely. We know that, and this is why we have tobacco control these days. But so the point is that all of 4 of the top commanders of the major branches of the military have supported this across the United States and the states that are going to 21. And also, we look at age 18, which had been the standard since the 1800s, since 1886, when Massachusetts legislature first passed the tobacco laws. Age 18 back then, you were almost a middle-aged person. You were actually a full adult at that point in time. Most 18-year-olds were married, starting to have families. They had to be because the average lifespan of a man back then was about 45, 46 years old. So people had to start their lives early, be a lot more mature. When you think about your 18-year-olds now, they're still in high school, and then they're off to college, and then you don't start your families nowadays till you're in your late 20s or early 30s for most people. So life is a lot different, and those people are looked upon very differently. We know now that science shows that the human brain is not fully developed until age 25 or 26, and that people that are still in their teens make a lot of irrational decisions. This is why the industry spends 95% of their advertising dollars specifically on 14-year-olds, because they know that once a kid starts to smoke, they have a customer for an average of 20 years. It makes all the sense in the world to raise the age right to 21. Largely pulls it out of the high schools. This has been shown, and this is a public health strategy that's evidence-based. Massachusetts doesn't do anything from a public health standpoint that is not strongly recommended by the CDC, FDA, National Institutes for Health, and thoroughly peer-reviewed, and again, evidence-based. So I would strongly recommend that the board consider doing this to avoid, any trouble with your retailers, the youth in town, any confusion, who can buy, who can't buy. It just would be a lot cleaner and decisive, and it gets it done.
You want to add it?
No, no.
Not after that, it's well said, Bob.
Very well said. There are over 200 communities now, well over 200 communities in Massachusetts now that have just made the complete
Already
leap.
done it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so.
can't be, not
So-
too many left.
It's over 2/3.
And thank you for being a resource to our. No, it's a pleasure, and, I've been working with the town since 1995, and, it's always a pleasure. That's great, thank
It's
you.
been very helpful.
Thank you.
So this will go into effect first of the year.
You should put it into effect no later than December 30th. I'm recommending the 28th, just to avoid any
Friday.
confusion and possible conflict with the state law, which put in, their start date for some unknown reason. I said, I think the 31st or 30th, so I'll just predate it by a couple of days. The 28th is a Friday.
Yeah.
And we're not gonna come out on the weekend and do compliance checks and try to catch people. That's not what's gonna happen. But it just gives time for the retailers to kind of get used to it, moving into the new year. And of course, there'll be an educational phase if, for all of them. And I'm getting the signage sent to the office so that they can be supplied to all of the retailers in town. So what is the process, in terms of public communication?
We have a list of all the tobacco permit holders.
Will you reach out
So-
to the paper and those kinds of things?
Yes, well, we have to release a legal notice
Okay.
about the vote that we do
Right.
today, if it
Yeah.
passes or fails. So that has to go to the newspaper
Right.
regardless.
But in addition to that, I think
And
this is
then we
such a
can, Yeah, we have a small advertising budget that we can use.
Well, I wouldn't have to pay for it, just call it, you know, Mary Ann and tell her you've got, no, she may write.
She's watching.
This is a public health matter.
Yeah.
Yes. No, absolutely.
This is news.
No.
We
This is-
shouldn't have to pay for
Right.
it.
And you might wanna get, you know, have the superintendent of schools weigh in or something.
That's a great
or,
point.
you know, so.
And we can reach
Mhm.
out. I can put it on my agenda to reach out to the newspapers. As long as we pass it.
Anybody else wanna add anything? Need a motion to
So we're
close
still
the,
in public hearing, do we have to close those?
You have to close the public hearing.
motion to close the
So
public hearing?
moved.
All in favor?
Second.
Hi,
Public hearing's closed. Now we can vote on
So I make a motion that we adopt the recommendations as outlined in the four recommendations for amendments of local regulations 72 and 77. Tobacco control is outlined in our packet.
I second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So could I also add
Oh, we need the
that the,
effective date.
could I also add as a friendly amendment that to be effective December 28, 2018?
Right.
Great.
Thank
Okay. Okay. So get that legal notice out and I'll connect with the newspapers as soon as we can.
Okay, anything from any of you guys that you wanted to talk about?
Well, Dr. Hartman has offered to arrange a tour for the health department and board, if you're all interested in that. And I will maybe, we'll figure out a way to get your schedules,
Absolutely.
probably, after the year. And I was just wondering the status, how we're doing with the water testing lab, because at the Scalpers board the other day, they were asking about
Yes.
that.
So Mike Delaney has asked me for a significant amount of paperwork and files and things, so I've been getting that to him, mostly piecemeal because it requires a lot of other departments. I'm waiting to hear back from Natural Resources and DPW on their groundwater tests, and then I'm waiting back on the water company, the sewer department's DEP permit.
Yeah, so it's moving forward.
So, but once we get that we get that paperwork, we have all the database and how much things cost, all that is getting to him. So it is moving forward. He's gonna give me an update early next month.
And one other thing, a while ago, I sent you a draft letter about a meeting with the state on deer.
Yes.
It's kind of fallen off my radar. Can we bring it back for sometime, say February or?
Perfect.
Not in I can't in January, but
Perfect. We'll do it in February.
if we just finish up that letter, if you added that.
I responded, but you were in
Uh,
Europe.
if you could
So I'll
just-
forward that again to you.
Let's just put it back on our
Mhm.
list of things to do
Yes, sir.
into the new year. That's all my questions I have.
Did the tick-borne disease numbers stay?
They stayed low. I haven't looked at them recently. We did get a surprising amount of cases this year of Miyamotoi, which
Mm.
was surprising.
We're looking for it.
Because we're looking for it. We saw a few cases of Borrelia miyamotoi this year. And then Sam Telford tells us that the predominant tick on Tuckernuck now is the Lone Star.
Wonderful.
So it'll probably be this summer before it gets to our main island. So, but the Lyme numbers stayed relatively
I
stable.
mean, it was under 50
Mhm.
in September.
Yeah, and
Okay.
last I checked in November, it was still there. I have to check it again for this year,
Oh, that's,
for this month.
And the paper reported a deer, whatever, harvest of 600?
624.
Is that what's that number? Is
It's
that
average, isn't it?
high, low?
That's
It's
about
It
right.
hasn't finished for the year.
That was
harvest.
deer and shotgun, yeah.
They still have muzzle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, 600, I have to go look at my chart. That is actually, no, that's,
More?
It's
It was
Eight-
six
wasn't eight
fifty-seven
something
last year,
high?
yeah.
I'll go look at
Was that
that.
shotgun and
It's
barrage
probably
this
close,
year?
it's close to being an average,
I think
right?
so,
That's
yeah.
it.
Six.
I mean,
How many
5 years
six?
ago it might have been 500, but last year it
The
was
last
657.
2 years, it's been at a level when you go back to the 205 February. So it's, the question is, well, the question of the state is, we have to look at these numbers and see if we're actually doing okay on our own,
Mhm.
is the question.
Yeah.
I don't know, they're, because they're everywhere.
I know, but if you go back to some of the state numbers, we're at a level that should be okay, but that's why I'm not sure I believe the state numbers.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanna sit down with the state and their statistician and, because we can't talk about anything unless we have the facts, and I'm not sure.
Oh, that never kept us from doing that before anyway.
Well, I don't know if we'll ever get the facts, because, anyway, enough on that, let's move on.
Anything else?
Yeah.
Okay, you good?
I'm good.
Okay, so that's, I guess that's it. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
All right.
Thank you.